said. Yes.
We're
All
ready
right.
to go. Okay, thank you for having us. My name is Zion Ethiopia, and the voice of the community. And we're going to be talking about a lot of stuff. And we have Malik here, my good friend. I've
Very
known you
good
for a
friend.
long time, Professor Malik.
Very good friend.
So, yes, and over 20 years we've
Yes,
known each
yes,
other.
oh
Oh my
yes.
gosh,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
since.
have hairs of gray that show the wisdom and the mileage.
Yes,
Yes.
so good to have you.
Thank
It's
you very much,
always
Zion,
good
for having
talking
me.
to you because your insight, your knowledge, your wisdom. Oh my gosh, people are not ready for you. So I'm just so glad to have you right here talking about your new book.
Thank you very much.
Yes,
Thank
it's
you.
called Sanguine Thread.
Yes,
Thread.
yes, sanguine threads.
Yes. So we want to talk about that. But first, I want to hear it from you, who you are, what you do, how amazing. I know you're not going to say how amazing you are, but you are.
I'm a very modest person, so I'll put away the modesty for a second with
Yes.
respect to trying to promote myself and marketing my book.
Yeah.
So
Tell
thank you.
us who you are.
So thank you very much, Zion.
No
I'm a
worries.
professor and scholar of ethnic studies,
Yes.
and I try at my level best to, because I know not every student who wants to be a student at the university
Yes.
is going to be able to afford the costs, and things of that sort. So I try to take what information that I impart within the confines of my classroom and
Yes.
have that transcend and
Mm-hmm.
impact anybody and everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So, in addition to writing nonfiction, I've written, this is my debut novel. I'm a author of poetry. I have the second edition of my book of poetry coming out. It's called Woke, the second edition. So that just landed also. So some individuals say, well, I tend to be a little overly ambitious, which, I'm a scholar.
We
I
get
am,
that.
so I had two books published this month, last
Yes.
month.
Wow.
Sanguine Threads, my novel, as well as the second edition of my book of poetry, Woke.
Wow.
So yeah. So Sanguine Threads, oh my gosh, so that's um, it's an extension of a novella that I wrote in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
And that novella was entitled Ashley's Racialized Asymmetry. It followed a 17-year-old,
Yes.
seemingly white girl,
Yes.
who, and at that particular time, she had partook in this academic tricathlon at her high school.
Yes.
So at that particular year, there was a moving set of topics that were going to be discussed.
Mm-hmm.
And if anybody knows anything about sciences, typically social sciences are considered the soft sciences. Everybody usually lines up for the harder sciences. So her being the newbie, when she showed up, for the tryouts for this thing, everybody who was all of her other classmates who were participating in this academic triathlon, whether they were the physicists, whether the chemists, or things of that sort, they took the harder sciences and left her with the soft science. So she had a social science,
Yeah.
topic to do. With respect to that, getting ready for that, she not only had her high school coach, but they
Mhm.
also brought in a coach from the attending, well, the local university, UC Irvine. One of the settings is in UC Irvine. So I'm just getting a little backstory with respect to
Yes.
Ashley, which is she's one of the protagonists in the book,
Wow.
Sanguine Threads. She's not the only protagonist. There's another protagonist also. Her name is Deidre.
Yeah.
So Deidre's black, and
Uh-huh.
and Ashley, seemingly by society standards, is white. I'll just leave it at that because I do want to maintain a degree of
Wow.
suspense for the readers. But how I got into this particular book is me being an ethnic studies scholar. Um, Within that particular field, I
At Sac State.
SX, yeah, SX
Yes.
State. So I examine, I used to examine and unfortunately now there's a bifurcation with respect to how people approach ethnic studies.
Yes.
There's ethnic studies and then there's liberated ethnic studies.
Yes.
Liberated ethnic studies has a tendency to focus on those four ethnic groups for which ethnic studies was originally founded upon: the indigenous population,
Hmm.
African Americans,
Mhm.
Latinos, Latinas, and Latinx, and Asian Americans. Why African Americans? Because for those who are familiar with United States history,
Hmm.
the bulk of African Americans, those who carry the label, African Americans, they found themselves brought to these particular shores as being enslaved, within this like 17th century and
Yeah.
the 18th century, things of that sort. However, when they were brought here,
Mhm.
of course, they were reduced to chattel, and chattel is human beings in animal form, or
Wow.
animals in human form. Okay, so they
Wow.
had stripped away their ability to read, to write, to marry,
Yeah.
things of that sort. So this is why eventually later the 13th Amendment and the 14th Amendment and the 15th Amendment, were
Yeah.
founded to reapply those particular, if you will, rights that they had, been stripped of.
Yes.
Okay, one of those rights was the ability to read and write and educate oneself.
Yeah.
So
Because you don't want to be exposed.
you don't want to be
But
exposed.
if you're exposed,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like the old
You're
adage
not
is
gonna let
information
you
is power.
expose, yeah.
Information is power.
Yeah.
So you don't want individuals, who have been designed to be chattel or just to be labor,
Yes.
to have any knowledge.
Yeah.
So hence one of the reasons why they were stripped of that particular ability to read and write. Okay.
Yes.
So with that being said, one of the four people, one of the individuals, one of the groups of individuals, who led the struggle for the reclamation of these rights were African Americans, and hence one of the reasons why they're of the four oppressed groups, for which ethnic studies was originally founded upon. Okay, and sometimes within my class, sometimes within my lectures, I talk about the four eyes of oppression.
Yes.
It's ideological oppression, institutional oppression, interpersonal oppression, and then internalized oppression. And unfortunately, for some of us, who are situated with these four eyes of oppression, you can imagine a triangle, if you will, with four tiers: ideological at the bottom, institutional next, interpersonal, and then internal. So you and I, and Zion, I have to give it to you. Zion, I have to give it to you. You are such a voice in the market of ideas right now with respect to bringing attention to reparations.
Yes.
Okay. So reparations in itself is a movement on the part of individuals, who are trying to reclaim essences of that economic power that we lost.
Yeah. And be repaired for what has been done.
Exactly.
That's what reparation means: repair.
Repair.
From the beginning, what they have done to the African American, they need to be repairing that.
Precisely. And we unfortunately just saw that bill just got killed, when it went before the Senate, but we are people, we don't give up. We keep going. But the reason I'm bringing up reparations is because it's that ability, to repair or to reclaim essences of that economic power that we lost, the educational power that we lost, things of that sort. So again, ideological, institutional, interpersonal, and internal. And internal, though it seems like it makes up a small portion of that triangle, it's the most lethal because it is the internalization of an individual or individuals who have been oppressed to internalize that oppression and begin hating themselves. Yeah. Oh my God.
That's another podcast.
That's another podcast.
Yeah. Because that was by design.
Yes.
It was done. That's why we say reparation, that needs to be repaired.
Yes.
Did you know we still pay British a loan that they gave America a long time ago? But they're not paying the African American who paid for it for 400 years.
Yes.
It don't make sense to me.
It doesn't
make sense. But we're paying England for whatever loan. I don't even know what that loan is from the World War I or something.
And that's one of the reasons why Haiti is still catching a great deal of hell right now, because being the first independent nation, in the Western Hemisphere. I mean, people have a tendency sometimes to wonder why Haiti is dumped on so much. But even right now, with the scare tactics that are being played by the Republican politician, former President Trump, who at one time said when he was referencing why there are so many Black individuals coming here,
but Europeans coming here
Ethiopians too. Also, but he
European.
said, Europeans.
Actually, Europeans are the highest immigrants in the United States.
Exactly, but when he was referencing,
he's immigrant too.
He's from Scandinavia, exactly.
No, he's German and Scotland.
Yes,
one generation immigrant.
However, when he was referencing some of these other individuals from these, and I'll use the term that he used, these shithole countries.
Yeah,
he was talking about these countries that Black folk are primarily coming from. And the one that he was referencing
primarily was
Africa. Africa and Haiti. Unfortunately, Haiti has been so hated on because it was the first independent country, that was headed up by Black folk, by Toussaint Louverture, who led that revolution against the French, so right now we still hear mention made, and scare tactics recently made by this individual, trying to scare individuals into believing that because of the heavy population of Haitians in Springfield, Ohio, that they're consuming animals and things like that. So we still have that.
And the eating
Yeah,
whatever he's saying.
exactly.
But the thing again, I want to come back to that because we need to be above the presidents, the government of France still charging
Yes.
Haiti
Yes. Yes.
like a loan from what they long time ago.
Yes.
So that is what is actually the cause of the whole problem. Why Haiti's the people are where they are is because they still have to pay France.
Yes.
Africans, we still have to pay France.
Yes.
Why?
Yes.
African Americans, they even though they paid for 400 years, even though instead of paying the African American reparation, we paying British
Mhm.
from taxpayers' money.
Yes. Now the word reparations and this struggle for reparations, it seems to be worldwide. It's a
Yeah.
global, it's diasporic, if you will, for people
Mhm.
who are diasporic. Because within my novel Sanguine Threads, the second setting, there's two settings within Sanguine Threads. One is within Ohio, here in the United
Yes.
States, and the
Mhm.
second setting is in Saint Martin, which is a small little island in the Caribbean. Right?
Yes.
How did I select Saint Martin? I was there on vacation one time. And I'm, as a writer, I'm always looking about, seeking around for inspiration.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, hey, this looks like a setting. And I know the history of the area. I'm like, you know what? Hey, this seems like it fits right into the axis of where I want to write about. Okay. I didn't know, though, at that particular time when I made my second research trip there. And the second research trip was when I was finalizing my research and finalizing my writing, that this was in 2022. And in 2022, when I was there, the Prime Minister of Netherlands, he had made a statement with respect to an apology that was provided, to the Saint Martins, Saint Martins, as well as a movement to, I don't want to say appreciate, but a movement to give credibility, to the move, to give credibility to their movement for reparations.
Yes.
So even individuals in Saint Martin in the Caribbean are still striving for reparations for those bits of humanity that they lost during slavery.
Absolutely.
Yes, so Sanguine Threads peeks behind the curtain, if you will, on that. What I want to do is I want to share something with the crowd today, with our audience. So I made reference to another book that I had just dropped, and it's called Woke. And one of the poems that is within Woke was a poem that I wrote when I was on the second leg of my research tour there in Saint Martin, and it's called Keloid Smiles. The name of the poem is called Keloid Smiles, and I think it encapsulates it best. I'm a modest person, but I think I hit it on the target. I think it encapsulates best the essence of what you and I are talking about. Holdovers of this ability from colonialist nations, to reduce individuals to peonage, and exploitation. All right. So Keloid Smiles.
Yes.
The friendly island, indigenous warmth, smiles forced to mask centuries of pain. Planes descend to bring others adventures, and moonshot back to selfish stratagems.
Yes.
Massaging the feet of those that trample dignities away with the crashing waves. Smiles forced to conceal abscessed teeth, set on edge of neocolonialism. An apology? Jetsam, it appears, to steer the vessel through harsh cataracts, denying the truth of history's presence, the staid resilience of one Titi Loke. Machete, cane sugar, stewed molasses, fatten the filth of a wanton search. Passport pastimes plague people's pleasures amidst grins carved on a black diasporic face. Again, that's Keloid Smiles. I referenced an individual within that poem. Her name was One Titi Loke.
Wow.
One Titi Loke is referenced in Sanguine Threads. And let me just share a little bit what her name means. One Titi Loke is the name of an individual. Her name was Loke, but she took on the nickname, the moniker, One Titi. Why? And this is the terminology what she uses. And I'm not, and even though the audience is made up of audiences where, audience is made up of adults, and some children may be listening to this, but One Titi describes the harsh punishment that was meted out to her. She was at one time reduced to slavery, on Saint Martin, when Saint Martin was a colonial post of the Netherlands. She had attempted, like most people, because it's a natural reaction, to run away from that which you're subjected to, which is anti-human and subjective
Ah,
nation. So she tried to run away from the plantation on numerous occasions.
yeah.
On one occasion when she was recaptured,
Oh,
the punishment that was meted out to her was they cut off her right breast.
oh,
Yes, they cut off her right breast. So hence the moniker, the nickname that she took was One Titi Loke. There's a
ah,
statue of her in the middle of the northern side of Dutch side of Saint Martin. That is a tribute.
wow.
And you and I were talking about it's a one woman show.
Yeah.
We're getting ready for this.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a testament to the strength of African women, Black women, or many of us, who are from the African continent, who have
what we have to go
what we've
through.
had to go through, and what we still have to continue to go.
And because of greed,
Yes, yes.
because of money,
Exploitation.
because of
Exploitation.
and we've been exploited from that time to this day.
Yes.
And we still have to explain ourselves why we have to get paid back for all those exploitation. Look at Africa. Look at African American. Look at the Caribbean. And they still are printing the money for themselves, for
Yes.
their own community.
Yes.
But every country that Black people has lived, also we're still paying European.
We're still paying
We
Europeans.
gotta stop that.
Yes.
I mean, why are we paying as Black people? They're not paying us, but we paying European.
And if we're not paying, and if there's not that immediate exchange, in payment, there is an immediate exchange in favors or services, as I referenced within the poem here, massaging people's feet.
Yeah.
So when I'm there and I'm writing, and looking out, and there my wife, we're enjoying ourselves. I'm fixated on noticing that for individuals who are on the beach, you have St. Martin's, women, Black women who are going to make these Europeans feel comfortable by massaging their feet. They may be extracting from them maybe $5, but making them feel comfortable, making them feel like they've been pampered. If in my estimation as a scholar, it's very much a layover of colonialism. It's just neo-colonialism.
Yes.
That's why I read neo-colonialism.
It is.
It's
Absolutely.
still
To
exploitation.
this day.
It's still exploitation.
To this day, look where we are as people in America. Only 3% of us in business.
Yes.
With 65% white community in business. The
Yes.
wealth gap.
Yes.
And we still have to pay European.
Yes.
Instead of being getting paid.
Yes. See, and Zion, that's one thing that I think most individuals are misinformed about with respect to reparations. Okay.
Yeah.
Most individuals have been duped or deluded into believing that reparations just involves an exchange of money or like that. It doesn't have to be that. We could start with that. However, that monetary means of exchange could transcend just the immediacy of paper, and it can impact loans. It can impact education. It can impact small businesses, who are struggling, to get off the ground or to expand.
Ownership.
Ownership. I mean,
look at African America. Last time they showed the statistic, only 30% of African American owning their own housing.
Yes.
That's itself there.
Yes.
It should be 90%. African American be living on this land for 400 years.
Yes.
So wouldn't you think at least 80% of Africans should own their own home and land?
So reparations can come in the form of a down payment, from the government for individuals to procure or secure means of living. Reparations can come in the form of expanding educational opportunities, which
absolutely.
we know. One of the hats that I wear also is I'm a consultant with California Department of Education. I'm a consultant of educational programs, and I have been consulted by a lot of school districts, to assist them in developing.
Kudos to the president, state president. He's really
Dr. Luke Wood, exactly.
And
so a lot of school districts are consulting me on how to develop their ethnic studies programs.
Yes.
Because according to Assembly Bill 101, all school districts with high schools have to have developed a viable ethnic studies program by 2025.
Yes.
Right? So with that being said, some school districts are scrambling, with how to do that. Now, we all know, and majority of the school districts that I work primarily with are Title I and Title III schools. Title I schools are predominantly Black and brown schools, predominantly attended to by Black and brown schools, poor schools, poor individuals, or Title III schools, which are predominantly helping those students who are English, English learners.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, reparations can go great in the area of expanding those educational opportunities.
Yes.
Maybe in the form of loans.
Yes.
I mean, not even loans.
No,
What am I talking about?
no,
Loans. I'm sorry.
Grant.
No,
No, we're
grants.
not
Grants.
taking no
Yeah, not
loans.
talking about grants. You know,
Yeah.
to further one's education.
Yeah.
You know, small businesses.
Yes.
I'm sure with the TEF.
Yeah.
I mean, my gosh.
Food.
I mean, food.
Look how
Can-
land. Give us the land so we can grow our
give us
food.
the land. You know, small businesses like Candle Wonders, you know, can expand, you know, beyond just
And
the
instead of
one-woman show.
3%, we can be 20%
Yeah.
tomorrow. Then we can hire our people, our
Yes.
community, feed our. But the thing, what I have seen the problem is in our own Black community
Yes.
as well, because we got to be taking our responsibility too. So
Well,
what I'm seeing is they put people, even in the political side, our own leaders are putting them like gatekeepers. So they're always listening to twisting their hands, our
Mhm.
own people.
Mhm.
You don't see no white community or Asian community selling out their own community behind closed doors. So we really gotta have to make our people accountable, our own people accountable. Look at Black Caucus. They
oh,
pulled off, that is our own people because
Yes.
the governor said so. They
killed
pulled
that
their
bill. They
build
killed
the
it. They killed the
bill.
bill.
But why? Why can't they put it on the governor's desk? Let him be accountable. But the thing is, all these government officials and politicians, whether it's the governor or the city manager, the county supervisors, they will put Black people that will listen to them instead of the community. Then we can't win because from them time, because our own people selling out on their own community for pity
Yes.
and listening to their master still, we can't. We have to make our own community leaders
You and I,
accountable.
you and I are like-minded here because when you said masters, my mind was going back to the straw bosses, you know,
Yeah.
that were used in this hierarchical scheme, you know, of keeping Black folk divided amongst themselves.
Yeah.
You know, like
It's still
they
working.
call it the crab
The
barrel.
Willie Lynch syndrome.
Yeah, the
right
Willie
now.
Lynch syndrome,
Right now it's working.
the crabs in the barrel syndrome.
Yeah.
You know, one can only get ahead to the degree that I can get ahead.
Yeah.
You know, and if you get ahead too long, like a crab, I'm going to pull you down.
Yeah,
you know,
especially Black people. We have to stop that.
And it's a dilemma. It's a phenomenon that we've been plagued with, you know, for the
Yeah.
longest time. And some of us as scholars, I mean, we even find ourselves theorizing about this, and even putting a practical question is, I don't know of many Black-owned supermarkets.
Yeah, nothing.
You know,
we don't have any. Look at in the agriculture, they brought us from Africa
Mhm.
for agriculture because they didn't know how to grow food. So we Africans coming in this country, growing the food, they were building America.
Yes, yes,
But now we only are 2% of Black people in the agriculture industry.
yes. Yeah, we grow the food, we pick the food, we pick
But
the
how
cotton.
are we at this time? We only 2% of us in agriculture industry, 2% in manufacturing industry, 2%. Why only 2%? They believe that we deserve only 2% as Black people, and they take 90%. The same thing in Africa. They give us 2-3%. They take everything. So we have to change some policy in legislation and make the government accountable. Until we do that, and then make our people, the so-called the leaders, the community leaders, accountable, they're still going to take advantage of us.
You know, one of the most prescient scholars, you know, who we have on our side, who we had on our side, but who still have on our side because of his written word, you know, still lives in our presence, and that was Frederick Douglass.
Yeah.
You know, and he put forth some very powerful words. Power concedes nothing without demand. We
Yeah.
forget about that sometimes.
Yeah.
Power concedes nothing without demand. You know, and standing in a line or
We're not demanding, we're
politicking,
not
you know, or
asking.
lobbying, we're not asking, you know, and some of us still behave like, you know, very domesticated slaves, you know.
And we forget we pay tax too.
Yes.
The taxpayers' money, 90% of it going to the white community, the Asian community, nothing coming back to our taxes, even though we pay the highest taxes, like putting into the taxpayers.
Don't get me started on taxes, because I can talk about some of the poems in my second edition of Woke that talk about the use of my taxes that are being used, you know, to promote a genocide, you know, on the other side of the world right now. You know, like we're being taxed at this very explosive rate.
Yeah.
You know, and I deliberately use the word explosive, you know, no pun intended, but again, you know, to promote and exacerbate this genocide that's going on, this waging
Black people
in
should not pay
Palestine right
taxes
now.
at all.
We should be
While we paying taxes, our community is still not getting no reparation.
precisely.
We don't have the businesses, and we paying taxes so they can use that money so they build themselves.
So they can build themselves up, and destroy others.
Yeah,
Who
destroy the Black
Yeah.
community, keep on take advantage of Black community until we wake up. Like you say, walk. We
Yes.
need to read that book. So
Yes.
tell us about that
So
book. too.
okay, so the book Woke. The first edition of Woke came out in 2018.
Oh,
Okay, and I was heavy with writing at that particular time. Also, I had 2 books that came out in 2018: A Haji Travelogue as well as Woke. Now, subsequent to that, I still been writing poems. I'm a very political minded individual, somewhat of a scholarly surgeon, if you will. So, and I draw inspiration from things that are around. So again, as I referenced earlier, we have this gross genocide that's waging over, in Palestine right now. That a lot of our tax dollars are going to fund, and we have no say in what's going on. Now, also, a lot of us have been deluded into believing that we have no say into this, and if we do, there's been much about trying to diminish or trying to extinguish the word woke.
Yeah.
And this has been coming from the right wing, as if the word woke is a pejorative or is a negative thing. Now, my editors and I were talking.
We don't want this.
So my editors and I were talking, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna, in the preface to my new book, I'm going to, as the historian in me, I'm going to provide a cursory overview of how we arrived at this word woke. So what I had to do was I had to remind individuals, look, so beyond the Ron DeSantis's, beyond the other individuals, who have been deliberately using the word woke as a means to mislead people. No, that word woke isn't a newfangled term.
Yes.
It's not.
No,
that word woke. That word woke was used out of the mouth of one individual. His name was a blues singer. His name was Leadbelly. Okay, and this was in 1930s. Okay, and on one instance, when the Scottsboro case was going on, the Scottsboro case should be a very familiar case because this was a case when a couple of young Black boys, doesn't ring different from the that full-fledged ad that Trump had brought out, against the Central Park Five, where the United States in a white supremacist nation like this, the United States has a hard time accepting the human value, particularly of Black men.
Yeah.
Particularly of Black men, right? So in the Scottsboro case, these 5 young Black boys, were alleged to have raped this one white woman because they looked at her or whatnot. Okay, so they were put up on rape charges. Now, at that particular time, a rape charge for a young Black male or any Black male was a sentence to a lynching. Okay, so when this case was going on and people were trying to put up money, to in the defense fund, for the Scottsboro Five, the Scottsboro boys, Leadbelly was on the blues singer Leadbelly was doing some performances, and he was down in Georgia. And on one instance, he was on the stage, and he uttered to the predominantly Black crowd there, not all Black, predominantly Black crowd, but white folk like blues music too. That's why they turned it into rock and roll.
Yeah,
all right, they borrowed heavily from it.
Everything came from us.
Yes, they borrowed heavily from it. Let's not forget that. So
everything.
while Elvis could shake his hips, he didn't learn those moves just in a vacuum. He borrowed heavily from blues. Right. So we have to remember that Leadbelly, on one particular occasion, when he was addressing the Black crowd at during this time of the Scottsboro case, he said, "We have to remember, with everything that's going on, we have to remain woke."
Yes.
This was in 1932, 1933. Wow. We have to remain woke.
Yeah.
So this isn't a newfangled term. So we
woke in here.
Yeah, woke in here. We have to remain woke. We have to remain vigilant.
Yeah.
So we need to remove and we need to yank back this terminology that some individuals try to use as a means to co-opt, or to misappropriate our culture as a tool or as a weapon against us. No, we had that first, baby.
Yeah.
that was ours. That was ours. So
no,
you're not gonna use our stuff against us.
Yeah. I'm serious all the time. Like, we come up with something, they take it over and they make it their own. Everything is a deceit.
Yes.
Look at coffee. They made it Arabica coffee. Should have been Ethiopian coffee. Everything, our history, everything we come up with, they take it, they experiment on us, and they, because they have the money
Yes,
and
yes,
the education and the resources,
yes.
and then they remove us
They try to
from
remove us from that.
from
Yes,
our own
and
making,
try to
and they make
lay claim
money
like
of
they're the
it.
origins of
But
such.
look where we end up with the culture, because it is a deceiving culture. So we end up with greed, sex, gun violence, and drug right now. That's
Yes,
the culture,
yes.
because it was not based on like I know it says that build your foundation
Mhm.
on a concrete.
Yes,
But when you build your foundation on people suffering, deceiving and lying and killing and greed, where do you think it's gonna go?
that's no better
Look
than
at our young kids now.
yes.
Our especially African American, were robbed from generational wealth.
Mhm.
Now that's why we're still in poverty. White people 1% in poverty. We are around 30% in poverty.
Yes, and
That's a hard.
and that may be
That's
somewhat
by
of a conservative.
design.
And that's by design. That may be somewhat of a conservative, conservative number. I mean,
Yeah.
but it's exploitation at its very root.
Exploitation.
You know,
We gotta
and
stop
it's very
it.
theory of of exacerbating the problem.
Yeah.
Yes.
And today actually we have, if I can show you, we have the awareness of, for people to get involved in the reparation at the African market. Chris will be doing some event, and
We need
awareness what's going
we
on.
need answers in action now.
Yeah, because of our
Yes.
own Black Caucus
Yes.
did that.
Yes.
Why
Yeah.
would they do that? Without explanation, just 10 minutes before, they've been doing that to us, our own community, selling out of for the government, or for the job.
Well, I didn't sell anything out in this particular book. I held nothing
No.
back. So
Yeah.
I mean, and think no, it's kind of serendipitous because some of the things that you and I are talking about, like cultural misappropriation.
Yeah.
I talk about cultural misappropriation here, within the book. Of course, there's characters. I have 15 plus characters,
Yeah.
that are condensed within this book. However, aspects of cultural misappropriation are talked about.
Yeah.
The first title, the first chapter of the book is entitled "One Drop."
Yeah.
It describes the one drop method by which reggae music, operates. But it
Yeah.
also describes a social policy
Yeah.
that was designed, in in the Western Hemisphere, particularly here in the United States.
Yeah.
And one drop of blood means that an individual is an African individual. So one drop of African blood makes an individual African in essence. I mean, we're living in the nation, that designed these sort of names, like Octoroon, Quadroon, by determining the blood quotient level that the individual had, or tried to, determine the blood quotient level that the individual had to, that identified the mixture of African blood that they had.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna just leave it at that because I
Yes.
want individuals to get,
want
to be
people
inspired.
to read
Yes.
it.
So
Make sure you guys read this.
I know we reached the end of summer, and some individuals may be like, hey, especially with students, and me being a scholar myself, let me help some individuals out there. If you're students, so the best way to come across, as being putting forth a scholarly effort, for individuals, who are in history or English or things of that sort. Professors love if you can cite their latest research.
Yes.
This is the latest research.
Oh,
Came out in
wow.
2024. So if you
Yes.
were to read this book, and cite it in some of your research or whatnot, especially research that has to do with critical race theory, especially research that has to do with ethnic studies, or anything that's relatable, the reason why
There's evidence in there.
there's evidence in there,
Yeah.
and also it deliberately incorporates mixed ethnic identities, because one of the struggles and one of the troubles that young readers, and this is particularly geared towards 15 and above, but young readers are struggling with, is identifying books that have characters that they can see within themselves. So that's one of the things.
And also, you were talking about food.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. So
I couldn't help myself, Queen Shiva.
Come on, you're the queen. You're the queen of Ethiopian food. All right.
Yeah.
So that's where you and I met. That's where you and I met. So if the audience doesn't mind, so one thing that I was sharing,
Yes.
and as an author, I deliberately, and one of my editors, I have two editors, but one of my editors was like, Malik, when you're writing, Professor Abdul-Khaliq, when you're writing, write so in a way where you're telling and showing.
Yes.
And that's some of the positive feedback that I received from my audience,
Yes.
with those who read my book,
Yeah.
read my books. Is like, I feel like I'm in your pocket, like
Yeah.
I'm on the adventure with you.
Oh,
That's good.
wow.
So there was an
Yes.
excerpt of here which I want to read
Yes.
that reminded me greatly of your and my relationship,
Yeah.
as friends and whatnot, because you and I met, around Ethiopian food. You know
Yes.
what I love, Mister. I
Yes.
love spicy food. Okay,
And
so
your sambusa too.
and I love sambusas.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, for the audience out there, if you haven't ventured over to Queen Sheba,
Be there.
please put it on. Don't put it on your bucket list.
Yes.
Don't put it on. No, do it today. All right.
Yes.
Don't go by there today. All right.
Yeah.
So, but there's one excerpt that I wanted to read from the book that reminded me greatly of you, and
Yes.
I'm describing sancocho. Sancocho is a stew that is
Yes.
common to the Caribbean. All right.
Absolutely.
So, if you don't mind, so 3 walnut-sized cubes of winter squash with
Mhm.
their muted orange flesh cupped with a waxy green rind floated atop a rich amber-colored cream liquid in a bowl teeming with bay leaf, a
Yeah.
fist-sized piece of corn on the cob, golden peaks of yams buried beneath, swimming alongside 3 visible slices of plantain, and
Yeah.
5 crisply braised, misshapen pieces of tofu. The aroma carried on the hair-thin fibrils of steam that wafted upward in an intoxicatingly complex mixture of coconut milk
Yeah.
with underscores of ginger amidst a pasticcio of allspice, garlic, slight of onion, and other secret spices.
Yes.
To the trained nose, one that's been afforded the privilege of sitting before a scrumptious bowl of sancocho, especially how Senora Monella prepared it, Deidre nearly swooned before her first bite, reflecting on the seductive taste of the open fire cooked stew that tantalized her taste buds. The first time she indulged such, she fought back tears as she steadied her spoon and said, "Thank you to Senora Manila." So when I wrote that and when I was reading it, I'm like, I'm usually a modest individual, but I did a good job there.
You did a
But
good
then
job.
it reminded me of my close friendship with my friend, Zion, who's the
Yes.
Queen of Sheba.
Yeah.
who's the Queen of Ethiopian
Cooking with
food. So
garlic
yes,
and
yes,
ginger
oh yes,
and
yes.
and
Plantain,
yes, and the
yes.
baked onion and all that stuff, and
Yes.
the tofu
Yeah,
that
and
we
the tofu,
cook.
yes,
Everything is, the base of Ethiopian cooking, which is a lot of, people use is that onion,
yes,
garlic,
Yes.
and ginger and turmeric. That is really like plant based.
yes.
Now we forgot all that and we just throw the chicken in the oil,
We just
breaded it, and it's ready to go. And it's not good for you either
we forget about the base.
because we're not taking our time. Yeah, we forget about
We
the
forget
base.
about the base.
Well,
And-
that
and-
is the base
yes.
of our health too. At the
Yes.
same time, that's why I think in Queen Sheba we like, we have food colorful. Golly, we cook all that. So that's why we believe, food is your medicine.
Yes, yes.
Health is your
Oh,
wealth.
oh yes, oh yes. It just dawned on me. I'm quick on some things, but so it just dawned on me the other day when I ordered from Queen Sheba, and I usually get the vegetarian combo,
Yeah.
and I usually get the misr,
Yeah.
the greens, the what's
You
the
like the sambusa
I,
too?
I like the sambusa too, but how you arrange it in
The yellow.
how you arrange it in there is the misr,
Yeah.
the yellow,
Yeah.
and the greens.
Yeah.
So red, black, and green.
Green,
your
yellow,
green,
red,
yellow,
yeah,
yes.
yeah.
So it's right there, and then my
Color.
sambusa, my
Yes.
sambusas. Yes, yes.
The earth, the
Yeah,
brown.
the earth. Oh yes, yes. So and that when that's
Yeah.
fried up, I have the representation of red, yellow, green, but then the black and
Yes.
edges of
The
it
Pan-African.
reminds me of the
It's
it
all
reminds
the
me of the
Pan-African.
Pan-African
Yes.
and how our struggle is in the diaspora.
Yes,
Yes, yes.
And really, food is the basis of our, that's why we came from agriculture. That's why they brought Africans over here for agriculture
Yes.
purposes, for economic purposes.
And we were mistresses and masters,
Yeah.
of agriculture of the earth.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I mean,
And God said on the Bible, you're supposed to be inheriting the land you worked on.
Mhm.
Our people worked on this land for 400 years. And I don't know how they don't own their own land. It's only 30%, and everybody comes here on the land. Like when you go to Africa, only Africans can own that
Mhm.
land because Africans work on that land. You see what I mean? Not
Yes.
foreigner can come and buy a land.
Yeah.
But here, everybody can come and buy a land, whereas the people who's been here for 400 years don't have the
Or
land.
or
It
worse,
just don't make sense to
worse,
me.
or worse, the people who were here beyond 400 years, the
Yeah,
indigenous
the
group.
indigenous
Yes,
the same.
you know,
But they were, I
so
mean, they were
so yes, so through scheming plots,
Yeah.
pun intended, through scheming plots like the allotment, the Allotment Act,
Yeah.
and the reservations, which they were, which they were put on. There's been a lot that's been done, to deliberately deprive individuals, of their linkage, to the land,
Yeah.
from which they can
The education.
land from which they can land from which they can grow stuff on food, education which they can grow in their minds,
Yeah.
And then profession,
Yeah.
from which they can extrapolate a degree of sustainability.
Yeah.
So I mean, we have that.
We
That
gotta
struggle.
rebuild that.
We
That's
have that
why I don't
struggle before
understand
us.
why they have a problem giving Black people the reparation. They give the Asians I mean, everybody got some reparation but Black people.
Well, Japanese Americans were afforded, $20,000, for the internment, and it's not a urinating contest, if you will, because I'm all for individuals who've been
Yeah, I
exploited,
mean, we're not saying
who've been deprived,
Yeah.
but we have to remember that for those individuals who were deliberately brought here
Yeah.
for the purposes of exploiting their labor, there never was, and I tried to remain an optimist, but
Yeah.
I studied history enough, where pessimism doesn't. It's a form of optimism in itself because it shields me against, any frustration. Right.
Yeah.
So individuals who are brought here for the purpose of building this nation up, I don't think they're going to be paid back. They weren't brought here for the
No,
purpose of
we have to
being paid back.
demand
So
because nobody's demanding. Nobody.
power concedes nothing without demand.
Yeah, we gotta demand. Even that's what is called policy and legislation change. If we don't learn about policy, my Black people,
Yes.
honestly, we're gonna be slaves for the rest of our lives.
Yes.
We need to learn about policy and legislation
Yes.
change. We need to make our governor, we need to make the city manager, we need to make the county supervisors accountable because they have the budget
And
to
here's
distribute accordingly, but they're not bringing it back into our community
and here's
by
how
design.
and here's how we do it.
And they have gatekeepers, including our own
Yes.
leaders.
And here's how we do it. So identifying those gatekeepers, one of the effective ways that we can attempt to circumvent that is by the effort that you and I are putting forth.
Yeah.
See, and I'm very proud of you, with respect to your podcast getting off the ground.
Yes.
Remember, I have an active podcast, and it was in a state of hiatus for a year because I don't have any ghostwriters.
Yeah.
So I write books on my own.
Yeah.
So I had to disappear into the library and put my podcast on hold for a
We
year.
need to get
because
that back.
it will be coming back. So I had
Yeah.
to put my podcast on hold for a year and be overly ambitious and publish my 2 books.
Yeah.
For now, this year, my podcast is going into its 3rd season. You were on my podcast twice on
Yes.
Ethnic Discourses. So you were my first guest, and then in the 2nd season, you were my second. You were my first guest. So
Please
yeah.
invite me anytime. I would love to be on. We could talk about this thing all day, every day.
And on ethnic discourses, I talk about some of those very charged topics, that we're confronted with,
Yeah.
with our attempt to reclaim
Yeah.
our essences of humanity,
Yeah.
and not only as Black folk, not only of children of the African continent, but anywhere and everywhere, people, with a label of ethnicity, and that's
Yes.
everyone. That's everyone.
Yeah.
And we have those particular
Underrepresented
discourses.
community.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's why we have to, especially with the reparation, what I'm really not happy about, I'm African, I'm not going to get no reparation, but if my African people, my African American benefit, Africa will benefit.
Yes.
Because even when here, African American benefit, every other people benefiting here too. When they had civil rights movement, look, white women were not able to vote that time. All women were not able to vote. But now white women can vote. They're making their own government accountable. That's why we have 45% white women in business, in CEOs, CFOs. I mean, kudos to them. but we're still oppressed when it comes to Black women. We're only 1% in business. So how do, especially when we have 3-4% businesses, when America is a business country, how do we sustain our community without being supported for businesses in education, in nonprofits, which they build themselves on
Yes.
that.
Yes.
But they don't want to give us on that because they don't want to give us the fund.
Mhm.
Now, reparation had 20 bills to pass 20 bills for when it comes to education, when it comes to housing, when it comes to everything else, what the Black community needs here in the United States. But they couldn't even pass 3 bills.
Mhm.
The 2 bills, they pulled it out.
So,
So,
Zion, you touched on two very important topics. One was the civil rights movement, and the other one was white women. And let me start with the second one first, because if we're talking about affirmative action,
yeah,
all right, if we're talking about being affirmative with respect to action that should be inclusive of a form of reparations or acknowledgement of ensuring that individuals who do jobs should be remunerated, paid for the job that they do, okay, or breaking the glass ceiling.
yeah,
White women were the primary beneficiaries of
Yeah.
affirmative action.
Yeah.
Primary beneficiaries and still remain the primary beneficiaries
Mhm.
of any affirmative action.
yes,
Now, with respect to the civil rights movement, when I was talking about ethnic studies, ethnic studies was that discipline of academic study that came out of the civil rights movement. The civil rights movement laid claim to ethnic studies. We have to remember, that some of the struggles that were put forth by individuals, Black, Brown, Asian Americans, as well as Latinx, where they weren't seeing a fair representation of themselves within the
Indigenous,
curriculum. They weren't seeing a fair representation of themselves within the curriculum. So we had the Third World Liberation Front, Third World Liberation Movement, Third World Liberation Front, create and I use this word in a very good sense, hostile, got into good trouble with respect to ensuring that universities such as San Francisco State University, as well as Berkeley, University of California, Berkeley, were one of the first institutions to create an ethnic studies class or ethnic studies discipline that deliberately incorporated the disciplinary look and examination and appreciation of the histories of those individuals, sets of individuals, ethnic groups who had been deliberately relegated to the margins, to the footnotes. Here I'm talking about African Americans first,
yeah,
and then the indigenous group, Latinos, Latinas, Latinx, and Asian Americans. So I'm glad that you brought up the civil rights movement because ethnic studies was one of those golden nuggets that was dug out, from those beds of coal, and put to a little heat and came out shining as a gold nugget. Yeah, we're still trying to make great deal of inroads with respect to helping some school districts establish viable ethnic studies programs. But with the more that are being established, the more exposure
yeah,
that we are getting to the richness that we have as a African set of peoples outside of the African continent in the diaspora. Whether we are still experiencing exploitation, but one of the things that we have to realize is that we are one people from one place,
yeah,
exploited globally,
yeah,
man. And
Yeah.
I'm just bringing it back to where we started.
absolutely.
Let's put the rest. And I know I make it seem simplistic, but let's put the rest. This crabs in a barrel
Yeah.
sort of syndrome.
Yes.
And can we, for once, build our own supermarket?
Yes. But they're not gonna give us the fund. They're holding the look. I tell people they will give. That's why we have gatekeepers. They put gatekeepers because they don't want to give our reparation. Because if they give Black people their reparation, then they can buy their own land. They can buy their own business. They can. Yeah, it might be not 100%, might not be, but statistically, even if we get 20% succeed with that reparation, African American would be in the middle class, upper class wealth creation. But right now we are on the bottom, even though African American been here for 400 years when it comes to our economics. That's why we were going through the state of Black Californians. Tomorrow they're gonna have another one tomorrow. You should be there to see for Sacramento, the state of Black Sacramento. So the way they showed it, we are in everything. We are, as Black people, we are on the bottom, even though we're living in America. That we're living in poverty. We live in lack of education. We live in lack of ownership. So they,
Sounds like
we have to come together to demand that reparation to be done, just like the Asians demanded right away for the head bill. They passed it right away. Now our governor doesn't want to pass. We have to make, for me, Democrats, Republicans, they're the same to me. Because even Democrats, if they don't put something that what they can do for Black community, every time we fight, even for the farm bill, now everybody's going to benefit of that.
everybody's going to benefit except for everybody's going to benefit except for Black farmers.
Yeah,
you know, which are
because we're still learning how to get the stuff done.
Yes.
But every community,
Yes.
they have their uncles, their aunts, and they bring all of them to get the stuff done. That's how they take everything from us. Even though it's supposed to be for us. Me as immigrant, I come here, I see everything like immigrant too. So every immigrant coming here, coming together, taking from the budget. I mean, we have over $3 trillion budget at the federal level. So we need to make, even Kamala, what is she putting for Black people? Oh, I'm not there for Black people, but we are on the bottom right now when it comes to where is our reparation bill at the federal level? Where is our economic justice? Where is our social justice? Where is our criminal justice? Where is our food justice for our Black community?
So when you bring up criminal justice, see, this could be this is going to have to be the topic of another podcast. Matter of fact, matter of fact, some of my episodes that I'm currently writing for the third season have to deal with that intersection of policies that are coming out of the Democratic Party, you know, with Kamala's name on them, you know, and with respect to criminal justice, we have to remind ourselves because we're not a people who have fallen asleep.
Yeah.
Especially individuals who've been exploited, especially individuals, you know, who, and whether the individual who's the leading prosecutor is Black or white, you know, or in between. If more individuals who look like myself as Black men were put in jail,
at that
particular time, you know, for the purposes of climbing a social ladder, well, there has to be some reparations that have to be paid.
Yeah.
There have to be some reparations.
And one of the bill, actually, on the reparation bill is criminal justice.
Yes.
They have criminal justice, social justice, educational justice, in housing bill. Let them pass it. Pass it tomorrow, because our young men and women are paying for it on this criminal. They're putting them in jail to make so much money.
So educational justice, let's each one teach one, and let's begin with ourselves. And let's educate ourselves first and foremost. And how we can do that?
By reading.
Go check out my book, Sanguine Threads. It will make a beautiful read for yourself as well as a gift for somebody else.
Yeah.
Some of us may be thinking we're in September. Oh my gosh, you know what? I have to start thinking in terms of gift giving for the festivities that are coming in November and December.
Yes.
This will make for a perfect present. It will make for a perfect present. And as they say about books are the gift that keeps on giving. Yeah. So when you read it and you open it up and you revisit it again, look, as an author, I'm reading this, you know, I'm like I said, I'm a modest person. Yeah. I lead with that foot, but I did a good job.
It exposed people too.
Yes.
I mean, you know, for me, the reason, how are you? Because I grew up in Ethiopia, and then I went to school in Europe, and then I came here. So I was exposed. I know how the Africans, you know, what we need, what we're missing, what we don't, you know, what we don't need. The same thing, you go to Europe, how they created the system on our back, Black people's back. They're still making money of Africa.
Yes.
Giving us 2% and taking 98%. The same thing I see here. Our Black people, African American, been taking advantage of, even though they paid for it. The kids are not benefiting. But everybody else is creating generational wealth. What is for? And instead, they put them in jail. They put them. There is no, when they come out, there is no cushion. We need to do a podcast on the Constitution, the 13th Amendment. That needs to be.
That's one of my topics.
That is what I'm talking about.
you
Legislation
must
change.
you must have a peek into my playbook. That's one of my topics.
Yeah, we
Yes.
have to,
Yes,
because as Black people, we're just letting those policies. That's what I'm saying. We need to have law change
so
to keep on taking advantage of our kids again and again, and we let them.
so the 13th Amendment was passed to end slavery.
That's what I'm
Okay.
saying.
And
we're still functioning without no change.
so the 13th Amendment was passed to end slavery. Okay. And some of these we call it force bills: 13th Amendment, 14th Amendment, 15th Amendment. I'm a usual lecturer over at UC Berkeley also. And this is one of the lectures that I give over at Berkeley, and it's entitled The Social Reproduction of Inequality. Okay, the social reproduction of inequality. And I remind individuals that one of the reasons why within the 14th Amendment, so sometimes I'll ask this question. The Fifth Amendment, we all know, prohibits the federal government from infringing upon the rights of individuals.
Mhm.
The 14th Amendment, we all know, was passed for the rights, to prohibit states from infringing upon the rights of citizens.
Mhm.
However, sometimes I'll ask the question with respect to, okay, what does the 14th Amendment have to do with the 13th Amendment?
Mhm.
And what does the 15th Amendment have to do with the Fifth Amendment? The 15th Amendment was, we know, to grant the right to vote. Okay. Now, the 14th Amendment that prohibited states from infringing upon the rights of citizens, it had some bills in there that were passed deliberately called the Civil Rights Act of 1866.
Yeah.
Now, the Civil Rights Act of 1866 was that act that put teeth into the 14th Amendment. Now, this is the exciting part right here. And I don't underestimate the intellect of our audience. We're brilliant people. But sometimes within the pages that we've been educated on or in, sometimes information has been left out. So I'm gonna drop a bomb here, deliberately.
Yeah.
So in the 1866 Civil Rights Act, one of the identifiers of a holdover to slavery, one of the identifiers of a badge of slavery was discrimination in the housing market. You heard me right. Let me repeat that.
Yeah.
One of the identifiers that was deliberately ensconced within the Civil Rights Act of 1866, which put teeth into the 14th Amendment, was to identify that discrimination that African Americans were still being subjected to as being a badge of slavery.
Yeah.
So when you and I are sitting here talking in 2024 about exploitation of African Americans or people from the African continent, we have to remind ourselves that in 1866, that had already been identified, that was a badge of slavery. So many of us still, if we're trying to live in a particular place and we're being discriminated against because of the color of our skin, you might as well say that we're still being exploited and we're still being treated as 21st century slaves.
Yeah, because the reason why they specifically not giving, the home ownership.
Yes.
Is generational wealth.
Generational wealth. I mean, there's a lot of wealth.
Now the governor is signing a bill to give immigrants $150,000
yes.
for home. So that means they're gonna try to get them generational wealth for their kids.
Yes.
While they're not giving African American the home, the housing. Do you see what I mean?
Yes.
But the kids could have now get that generational wealth through equity. They could have got the equity out. They can sell the house if they need to, or they can do whatever they need to do to even start their business and everything. That's how you create generational wealth, because they know it's deceiving. They don't want, that's why we only have 30% Black people owning their home.
And that generational wealth can be started incrementally.
Yeah.
The reparations of such. So on Broadway Boulevard, the corridor in which your scrumptious restaurant rests. Okay. All right.
Yes.
I'm gonna build you up here also. Okay.
Yes.
If one were to take Broadway east, eventually you would come across Stockton Boulevard.
Yes.
Okay. And if you were to take Stockton Boulevard south, it would cross with eventually Florin Road.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Now we're not too far away from Power Inn Road, where behind a cyclone fence exists these little small houses that were deliberately constructed for the, for the purpose of providing some type of living condition, for the unhoused, for the homeless, for the
Yeah.
unhoused.
Yeah.
We're here in Sacramento, California, and through the state, there's a disproportionate number of individuals who are African American or, from the African continent who are making up those particular numbers. So we can start right there.
Yeah.
But again, for bureaucratic purposes and political
That's right.
purposes, these things are being constrained behind these cyclone fences. But again, that's a topic for another podcast that I have coming up. So we have a lot to talk about. But
Yes.
Zion, thank you very much
Oh,
for having me on your
Yeah,
podcast.
Malik.
Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity, to
Yes.
talk about my book. I mean, I'm proud of it. I'm proud of this book. This is my debut novel.
And how many books you have wrote so far?
This is my fifth book. This is my fifth book,
Yeah.
and I have another one. And so I have the fever for writing. So
Yes.
at one point within the writing process, you have to down tools. And my editors tell me, okay, Professor Abdul-Khaliq, Malik, all right, let's stop writing. We have to send off to the publisher. So what do? I've established the fever of writing and whatnot, and I try to make nerdism look cool.
Yes.
That's one of my, I try to make nerdism look cool. So I'm like, okay. So I pivoted and I started another book. So I'm into the end of the eighth chapter of this book that I forecast will probably be about 13 chapters long.
Wow.
So yeah, the setting of this book has two settings also. One setting is in West Sacramento. Yes, I'm starting in the homeland. West Sacramento. And the other one is going to take me to do some research to Nicaragua.
Wow.
Yes, to the Bluefields part of Nicaragua.
Wow.
Why the Bluefields part of Nicaragua? Because the Bluefields part of Nicaragua is the only part of Nicaragua where in the northeastern section, you have the area called the Bluefields, which was an area that was colonized by the British.
Yeah.
And that's predominantly spoken, the language there is predominantly English,
Oh.
spoken amongst Afro-Nicaraguans.
Yeah.
So again, I'm in the struggle.
We have a
I'm in the struggle to help us define who we are,
Yes.
and overcome some of these seemingly chasmic-like differences, that situate us. So,
And we have to.
We have to.
I mean, well, that's what you do when you're educating people through your book, through your podcast. I mean, actually, even teaching people at the Sac State, you've been doing that. You've been educating community.
I try.
You've been educating me. Because, me, I'm a really people person. So I learn from people
Yes.
a lot of the time and even I love, people talking to people. I
Yes,
can talk to
yes,
you all day, every
yes.
day.
I know when
But about good stuff.
yes, and when I come in and place my order, if I see you there, you and I devolve into good conversation,
Yes, all the
and we're very busy, and I'll be the first to say, please excuse me, please accept my apology for not being able to entertain all of the conversations. I'm sure that goes
okay.
both ways because you and I are very busy, but
Yes.
we made time,
Yes.
and we've kept it. But I want to thank you very much.
Yes,
I want
thank
to
you.
thank Queen Chiba
Yes.
for giving me this opportunity to
Aw.
promote, my book and talk about my book. And please, if you're looking for something that a book that encapsulates essences of what you heard
Yeah.
Zion and I talk about today, this book
Yeah.
is that book talking
Get
about
it?
cultural misappropriation, talking about ethnic studies, talking about anything and everything, up under the sun, that's relevant today. I'm a scholar of ethnic studies. I'm a people person, so I know people's history and especially their processes of coming to America, and becoming that quote unquote dreaded hyphenated word, which, and I say that dreaded hyphenated word because even assuming that hyphen, they're not treated as full of citizens. So with
Yeah.
that being said, go buy the book,
Yes.
have the experience,
Mhm.
and that's the offer.
Yeah. And we'll keep talking
Yes.
to
Oh yes,
the
yes, yes,
professor
yes,
because we need so much education because education not only at school.
yes.
So we gotta educate.
Organic scholars.
We have no excuses now not to educate
Yeah.
ourselves.
No
because-
organic scholars.
Yeah.
You have organic scholars and inorganic scholars.
Yeah.
Inorganic scholars are those scholars who probably gone through, the gauntlet, if you will, of formalized education. Organic scholars are those that are scholars who look. Our first teacher is our mother.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's organic scholars.
Yeah.
Our first teachers are our mothers. That's
Yeah.
organic scholars.
That's why for me, mothers, honestly, we gotta support our
Yeah.
mothers.
And we all come from Mother Africa, so
Yeah.
come on, let's give.
If we don't
let's
take care
give-
of us,
if we don't have the love for those individuals who are
Yes.
identified as Al-Haji Malik al-Shabazz, and I'm talking about Malcolm X, who identified that
yes.
Black women are
the-
oppressed 3 times over. Okay, so
Yes.
we have to love ourselves first and foremost.
Yeah.
And as I started off with the four eyes of oppression, the most lethal form of oppression is that internalized. So we have a great Herculean effort that we have to overcome. We have a
Yes.
mountain that we have to walk up toward, and it may seem like a Sisyphean effort, where the granite of oppression keeps rolling back on us, but we have to love ourselves first and foremost.
Absolutely, because they made us hate
Yes.
ourselves. They made us,
Yes.
oh, you black, you light, you dark. I mean, who cares? We all God's children.
Yes.
That's where we have to start. So they stripped that away from us because we are very religious people from the beginning. We knew we had some high power, high power.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
yes.
that is the first thing, they took that away from us. So now we can start believing them, then believing ourselves, that
Yes.
the God in us.
Yes.
So that's why education is so important. I still see our people still believing, the Western, and instead of believing themselves, because they made us sabotage
Yes,
ourselves.
yes.
They made us believe we're not smart, we this and this, and our own people believe that. That's why Malcolm X said that the most disrespected woman is a black, woman, not only
Most
by even
disrespected
by
and most
her
oppressed.
own man.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And black women is the one that gave birth to the world.
That's why.
Where
That's why I
everybody
refer to.
came
That's
from,
why I
black
refer to
woman.
Mother Africa.
Yeah.
And yeah, we have scientists right now who tell us this, but we don't need scientists right now to tell us this. Anthropologists tell us this, but everybody came from Africa.
The first human being was found. Let me tell you, the first human being was found for the first time, the second time in Africa,
Yes.
in East Africa, in the Bible,
the Olduvai Gorge.
In the Bible,
Yes.
go and read. Everybody, Muslim, Christian, whatever, Jewish, go and read your Bible. Genesis chapter 2. We all believe in the Genesis chapter 2 from 13 to 15, where it says, when God, before he created even Adam and Eve, when God says he used the four river,
Mhm.
one of the river, Gihon River, is still in Ethiopia,
Mhm.
to the Ethiopian land. Then he created Adam and Eve. So even biblically, scientifically, we came from East Africa. You see what I mean? So, go and read your Bible. Go and read your Quran. Go and read
biblical
your
studies,
yeah,
Quranic studies,
Everything.
archaeology, anthropology,
everything.
individuals saying the Olduvai Gorge, Lucy. I mean,
Yeah.
it all
Lucy
points.
Afar, Salam.
It all points to East Africa.
Yeah.
It all points to Mother Africa. So
Yes.
we all come from the loins
Yeah.
of Mother Africa. Whether we like
If
it
you
or
want to
not.
be in
No.
denial, be in denial. But
And-
I don't want to tell.
And anything other than that,
Yeah.
on the larger scale, it's
Yeah.
self-hate.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And we are God's
yes,
children.
yes.
At the end
yes.
of the day, God created us to create our family and protect our family. They destroyed the family structures specifically for Black people
Yes.
here, especially in America, because that was holding us together. But we were lost because of that. Now we have to rebuild that. But we need our reparation.
Yes.
African American need their reparation. I really, honestly, from my heart, I believe if African American is doing well, Africa will be doing well. Just like Asians build Asia from
Mhm.
here, the Jewish build Israel from here.
Mhm.
European is still taking advantage of America. The German and Dutch, and they taking over the land. That's how they benefited Europe from here.
Yes.
But because African American are not wealthy, just like the white and the others, now they're not able to invest in Africa, invest in African people like me.
Yeah.
So we benefit together. All Black people benefit. Our kids benefit that way. But because by design, they don't want African American to benefit, so Africa don't benefit. Otherwise, who's going to help Africa? The Europeans are not going to help Africa because they're still going to take advantage of Africa, even though we have the wealth there.
I think we forget, and it shouldn't go forgotten by us, that charity begins at home.
Yeah.
So we have to rely upon ourselves first and foremost.
Yeah.
So power conceives nothing without demand, and if we make the demand it's not given, we have to snatch it back.
Yeah. And to have that power, we need to come together.
I'm a scholarly insurgent, so
Yes.
the revolution has to unfold, and I'm one to unfurl the banner.
We need unity.
Yeah.
They deliberately divided the Black people, so we don't come together. Even as business, we don't come together. As a company, we don't come together. So once we come together, then we can ask together what we are not been given, what we have been taking advantage of for a long time. And this is our time. We have to protect the
Yes.
generation coming in.
As you and I,
Otherwise, who?
as you and I talked about, it was deliberately conducted by design.
Yeah.
However, since we're free thinking people, you and I are at least putting forth a semblance of effort, semblance
Yes.
of effort,
Yes.
to do our level best
Yes.
by means of this conversation that you and I
Yes.
are having,
Yes.
conversations that we've had,
Yes.
discourses that we've had through Ethnic Discourse, my podcast. I wish great things for your podcast.
Yes.
These conversations that educate individuals within the confines and luxury and just the comfort of their own homes. I mean,
Yeah.
somebody could be listening to this or whatnot and say, okay, I don't know how far this may go, but I'm quite certain that individuals who are exposed, to these two particular books that I talked about, Sanguine Threads, as well as the second edition of Woke, and something about poetry also.
Yeah.
Poetry has a tendency sometimes, and I deliberately select my words, and they're pungent words, and they're powerful words, but that can sometimes get through the fluff, and people's um, defense mechanisms that they may build up.
Yeah.
So if Sanguine Threads doesn't do it, the second edition of Woke will.
Yeah.
But thank you.
Just
Thank
keep
you.
on reading.
Thank you.
Honestly,
Thank you.
Malik,
Thank you. Yes.
you're a professor. I'm just a business person, just
Don't say just.
talking
Don't say
out
just.
of,
No,
out of
you're
common
providing
sense.
you're providing food for the soul.
Yeah.
So
That's what but you
yes.
provide education to the mind and to the soul
and I get
too.
that from the misser.
Yeah.
And
It takes a village,
Yes.
and with that village,
yes.
our community, each of us brings something to the next generation.
So for
Our
those
kids
so
and
for those in
kids.
the audience, for those in the field who haven't gone by Queen Sheba,
Yes.
go by Queen Sheba, all right?
Yeah.
Because that's one of the mainstays of my intellectual and academic diet. Is whenever I start a project, or I'm knee deep into it or neck deep. She knows I go by there all the time. I have to get the mister. I have to get some, sambusa. Oh yeah, sambusas are these nice little things filled with pastries filled with lentils.
Yeah.
Those are the bomb. Those are the bomb.
I was gonna play, one of my good friend Daniel, he did a Facebook collaboration like we doing, and he did an amazing job. So I was gonna show you. Let's see where we are. I think it was on Instagram. There it is. Let's see if we can hear it. But what do they believe? Food is your medicine and health is your wealth.
Yes.
So I've been coming to Queen Sheba for about 6 years now, and it's some of my favorite food right here.
So what we have here is a combo beef. Plus we have the gluten-free jar. So you take a small piece and you just grab the dish with your thumb. I'm expert. And don't be afraid for it to be
Expert.
This place is the community.
This is like a social networking where people come, everybody knows everybody. People come here not just for the food, for the experience.
The restaurant is more than a place to eat.
The Burberry, you love the Burberry too, yeah.
The traditional interior to the fire stews, each dish tells a story of tradition.
Yeah. So Daniel, just like you, have known him
Yes.
for a long time. He raised his kids on Queen Sheba food. So it's such an amazing thing for me to see even the kids eating the vegetable, the greens and the lentils. So many people grew up on Queen Sheba's food, especially the kids, and just so amazing to see them really, eating Ethiopian food, vegetarian, vegan food that is really cooked with love and with attention and with care. Like I was saying, we don't cook food like in Ethiopia. In fact, you go to the farmer's market in the morning, get your vegetable, come home and cook the food. So when we come from school, lunchtime,
fresh
that's what
food.
we eat. And then we go to school and then we come back and eat that type of thing. So I want to bring that, because we forget about food here, especially here, because we always running around like we are, being busy. So for me, I'm so fortunate to have my food. So that's why I'm able to do what I do every day for 10 hours, 12 hours. I don't, have energy. without have to worry about sickness and disease and all that stuff that comes from eating bad food. So that's why I say food is really your medicine. At the same time, food could be your killer too.
Health is
Because-
wealth. Food,
Yeah.
food provides that supplement.
Yes.
And like I said, that's why you see me so much. You know, like I said, I'm into the end of my 8th chapter that I'm writing. So this is one of the medicines that I usually draw upon, to get me
Yes.
through those chapters.
Yes,
So,
and make sure
yes.
you eat your
Definitely.
food, proper food, because at the end of the day, food is what we live for.
yes.
Water is in family. We could not forget that, because the food we eat, if we don't pay attention to it, then we get sick one day. We're trying to reverse that. Now it's gonna take our energy, our money, our time. The whole holistic health comes from food. Your spiritual health, your mental health, your physical
Yes.
health, and your financial health too. Look at agriculture. I'm into growing my food now. I'm gonna grow my food organically. I'm listing on organic land. I'm gonna grow my tech organically. Why not?
Mhm.
Why can't we pay attention to our food, and instead of using our money to go to the space and the moon? I mean, the moon is good, but the Mars and Jupiter, I'd rather the money being spent building the land. Right now in America, there's only 1% organic soil left.
So for the audience here, again, to remain grounded, since we're talking about soil, use your money not to go to the moon. Use your money right now to reinvest uh, into a grounding for us as people of the African continent, particularly speaking, in the food as well as the food for knowledge and the food for intellect. And that's Sanguine Threads, and that's the second edition of Woke. So,
Yes.
Again,
So
thank you very much.
thank you, Malik. This is so amazing. I could talk to you all day.
I know. That's why
all
I'm trying
day,
to.
every
That's why I'm
day.
trying to reserve some of the topics for
Yeah,
some of the other
But
episodes.
yeah,
But-
we're
but
gonna
thank
keep
you.
it going.
Thank
We're
you.
gonna
Thank
keep
you.
it going.
Definitely.
Next time we
definitely.
can talk about food justice, because that is so, for
Yes.
me, it's at my heart. Food justice. How do we really use food to heal our
Yes.
community?
Yes.
So we're gonna talk about that. Social justice.
Yes.
The housing, the healthcare disparity in
Definitely.
our community by design. We got to talk about that. Our economic, our environmental justice is another story, that this Western civilization, they taking the whole world into the ditch.
Yes.
That's how I see it, especially through, killing our environment, our air, our earth, our soil, human being, all destroyed for money.
Topics for another episode. Let's keep them. Let's keep them
Yes.
interested. Let's listen in the future.
That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Malik. I
Thank you.
appreciate
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you, Zion.
Thank you. This is amazing. I appreciate
Thank
you.
you
We
much.
gotta keep it going.
Yes.
And make sure tomorrow too we have that. If you can make it from 10 to 11,
Yes.
10 to 1, they're having the Black California, the state of Black California. So there will be Black Caucus will be talking about where we at as Black people. They will be sharing all the statistics. So it will be
I will
at the California Museum.
Okay. I will
So-
definitely try to pencil into my calendar. I have
Yes.
somewhat of a. I'm out on my book tour right now, so I have a.
But show
But
up,
I will
because
definitely show up. I will definitely
Black
show up and
Caucus
try
will
to show
be
up.
there. We got to make them accountable. Like I say, if we
Yeah.
don't make our own officials,
Exactly.
so-called, they were supposed to fight for us, not against us. So we wanna have the answer why they decided. And tonight, 7 to Chris will be having that event, 7 to 9 at the African market. Please show up if you have any questions, and why reparation has not passed. What is the problem? How can it be prepared for next year
Yes.
to make sure this will pass? Because unless we all show up and show, and demand, it's only few of us making noise. They don't take
Yes.
us serious.
Yes. And
So-
reparations and the discussion of reparations will be
Yes.
the second episode
Tonight.
of ethnic discourses. Third season. So
Yes.
that's going to be coming out at the end of November, and it's going to give me a lot of rich information with respect to being inclusive
Yes.
of all that.
So show up, get involved, especially community. Our community need to get involved. We need to show up. We need to fight for policy and legislation change, so things can actually change, and we can get fund back to our community, even though we're putting our money back into the taxpayers' money. So this is your chance to get involved. It's at the African market. So Florence Square.
Florence Square.
So just Google Florence Square. Thank God for Google too. You know, we
Yes.
love technology. So use that and show up. Thank you.
Thank you, Zion.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Please get
Thank you.
involved and come and eat some Queen Sheba food.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Start.
and support the book.
Please do. Please
Put your
do.
money into the small community,
Please do.
small businesses, people like us. Just support.
Like I said, if you're looking for that perfect gift for the
Yeah.
seasonal festivities are coming up, the book a book is a gift that keeps on giving. You can purchase one for that special friend or loved one of yours,
Yes.
and
Christmas is coming too. It's okay.
it's only $17.95. I
Yeah.
deliberately priced it under $20. So
Yeah.
there are so many things that we will spend $20 on, but
Yeah.
educate yourself, and it's a good read and it's a fun read also at the same time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And pay attention to
Yes.
put your money into the small communities, small businesses. $20 goes a long way. So if we don't put the money back into our community, then we're still gonna be left behind. So make sure you support. You support me, you
Yes.
support Malik, you support all the small businesses and entrepreneurs and nonprofits. So together we can build our community united. Thank you. That's
One
that's-
love.
Yes,
Thank
one
you.
love,
One
one
love.
love. Thank
Thank you,
you.
Zion.
And
Thank
you
you.
have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you,
It
audience.
looks like a beautiful day too. Thank you. Thank you.